Hi, PerspectiveWeather.com meteorologist Paul Dorian here on Friday, December 11th. A very interesting weather pattern setting up for next week. It looks like there'll be two different storm threats for the Mid-Atlantic region, the Northeast U.S. Probably the first one on Monday and the second one on Wednesday. It looks like cold air may become better established for the midweek system, so that's a midweek system has more potential to have a greater impact in the Mid-Atlantic region and the Northeast U.S., and we'll focus in on these storm threats over the next several minutes. Let's start off by looking at some teleconnection indices that we've been focusing in on over the past several days. The Arctic Oscillation and the North Atlantic Oscillation. These two teleconnection indices give us an idea of what's going on way up north in the Arctic region, the northern latitudes, the North Atlantic. They're determined by the temperature and pressure pattern in that part of the world, and when both of these teleconnection indices go into negative territory this time of the year, that usually is correlated with cold air outbreaks that can make it all the way from northern Canada into the central and eastern U.S. And indeed, that appears to be unfolding for next week to coincide with not one but two different waves of energy that will come out of the south central U.S. towards the east coast. Again, the first early in the week and the second in the middle part of next week. Here is the latest forecast trend for the Arctic Oscillation. Red indicates the forecast over the next week or two, and black indicates the current position and the previous couple of months. And notice right here we have negative value here. This horizontal line right here is the neutral line, and it's currently already in negative territory, and all the suggestions lead to the idea that the Arctic Oscillation will stay in negative territory over the next week to 10 days or so. And we'll actually take a look at a 500 millibar height anomaly map in a moment to show you what a negative AO and a negative NAO usually suggest in terms of heights in the middle part of the atmosphere. Well, now let's take a look at the North Atlantic Oscillation, kind of a closely related cousin to the Arctic Oscillation. Usually they're in tandem with each other, but not always. And in this case, the NAO is also slightly in negative territory right now and is forecasted to pretty much remain there over the next week to 10 days. So both of these teleconnection indices suggest to me that we will get cold air established in the central and eastern U.S. just in time for at least the midweek storm system next week. The air will be marginally cold on Monday, so snow is a possibility in parts of the interior Mid-Atlantic and Northeast U.S., but it looks like there may be a better chance for frozen precipitation by the time we get to the second storm system next Wednesday or Wednesday night. Well, how do these teleconnection indices translate to the upper air pattern? Well, when AO and NAO are negative this time of the year, that tends to be correlated with what I call high latitude blocking, higher pressure than normal, way up north, places like Greenland, Iceland, northeastern Canada, and a high latitude blocking upper level pattern tends to force cold air masses down to the middle latitudes, and again, looks like into the central and eastern U.S. This is the forecast map from the ensemble run of the GFS from last night for the middle of next week. This is Wednesday afternoon, and the orange and red here represents higher heights than normal. And the way I see this, this is the U.S., by the way, and Canada right here, the North Pole in this region, and here is Greenland. This, to me, looks like a typical negative Arctic Oscillation pattern when I see this kind of a height pattern over the North Pole region. Over here, over Greenland, a typical negative NAO type pattern. Again, high latitude blocking in this part of the world that tends to force cold air masses down into the central and eastern U.S. Indeed, this kind of a pattern tends to have strong cold surface high right in this region right here, the southeastern part of Canada. That is always a key for me to look at for the possibility of snow in the I-95 corridor region. You really need to have a cold air source that's anchored to the north. High pressure, in other words, over the southeastern part of Canada. High latitude blocking, negative AO, negative NAO tends to lead to that type of pattern. We'll see in a moment here. Strong surface high pressure is indicated by the computer forecast models for the middle part of next week. So again, the cold air may be a little bit better established for that second system as compared with the first system. Meanwhile, by the middle of next week, you have a vigorous wave of energy here cutting across the Midwest, the southeastern U.S., and that oftentimes leads to some storm development right in this region, right along the eastern seaboard. So a pretty good pattern here for very interesting possibilities for the midweek system. And the first storm on Monday will have some cold air to deal with, but perhaps not quite as much or not as well established as the midweek system will have. Well, let's walk through the surface forecast maps from last night's operational run of the GFS, and then we'll end up with a map from the ensemble run of the European model from last night. This is the Friday morning forecast map from the 06Z GFS model run. A frosty morning, by the way, here in the Mid-Atlantic region. Temperatures near the freezing mark, and oftentimes frost is actually an indicator that a warming trend is about to begin, and indeed will turn milder today compared to the last couple of days, and even milder for the upcoming weekend. When you have frost this time of the year, that tends to tell you that high pressure is sitting right on top of you, the air mass is getting a little bit more moist, and there are clear skies, a perfect setup for frost. It also tells you the high pressure is about to move to the east. And indeed, that will be the case over the next 12 to 24 hours or so. On the front end of a high-pressure system this time of the year, you often have breezy conditions, not conducive to frost, and a dry air mass coming in from Canada, for example. So again, the frost this morning is a good indicator that a milder trend will begin and will approach the 60-degree mark in the D.C.-Philadelphia corridor over the upcoming weekend. This is the forecast map for first thing Friday. Again, high pressure off the eastern seaboard. Kind of the frost is telling you that the high is sitting on top of you, then now it's moving to the east. That opens the door for some milder air to move in, and it will reach the 50s today, and certainly well up in the 50s on Saturday and Sunday ahead of the next cold frontal system. Let's move forward here, and this is the forecast map for Saturday morning. Notice a pretty decent amount of a swath of rainfall with that next cold frontal system. It tends to weaken by the time it reaches the Mid-Atlantic region, the northeast U.S. Low pressure does cut across the Great Lakes. This is the forecast map for now, Sunday morning. And there's a cold front in here, right in this region here. That cold front will be rather uneventful on Sunday here in the eastern part of the nation. Maybe a shower or two, could be a shower or two on Saturday and Saturday night as well, well ahead of that frontal system, but a rather uneventful frontal passage coming on Sunday. However, despite the fact that that will be kind of a boring and uneventful frontal passage on Sunday, that really sets the stage, and it sets off in motion a series of steps that will make it very interesting by the time we get to the middle part of next week. In other words, this uneventful frontal passage will play a very crucial role in the weather pattern for next week. What it'll do is it'll usher in colder air, starts to push into, kind of filters into the Mid-Atlantic region. Doesn't really pour in on Monday, but it certainly turns colder on Monday as compared with Sunday and Saturday, but only marginal cold. And the first storm system will push out of the south central states, the Tennessee Valley region, and head to the north and east. Again, at the same time, some colder air filters in to the Mid-Atlantic region. And this particular storm system right now is tending to stay south of the Mason-Dixon line. I think that'll actually change, and it'll come farther to the north over the next few computer forecast model runs. They tend to shove this off a little bit too far to the south and east 2 or 3 days out. So again, I think this first storm system, which will have some marginal cold air to work with, will end up producing precipitation a little bit farther to the north by the time we get to Monday. This is the Monday afternoon forecast map. Notice a little bit of blue over the highlands of West Virginia Again, the GFS from last night kind of shunts off that precip before it ever makes it up to Philly and New York. I'm not sure if I agree with that. I think this first storm system will indeed push a little bit farther to the north and west. But notice what happens once that pushes away here. We start to see high pressure building into the southeastern part of Canada. This is the Tuesday morning forecast map. Again, this is a key for me to look at. I always look at the high to the north first before I talk about accumulating snow in the I-95 corridor region. It does correlate quite well with a sustained negative AO, negative NAO, and that's certainly, this makes sense that you'll have high pressure building into southeastern Canada. So it appears that a marginal cold air on Monday, then a better established cold air source to the north on Tuesday, just in time for that next system that is starting to show up here on the maps come Tuesday morning. Let's now move ahead, and here we are now by Wednesday morning. Look at this, a 1036 high over southeastern Canada. That increases the chance for frozen precipitation even into the I-95 corridor region. Certainly the suburbs of D.C., Philadelphia, and New York City have a chance for accumulating snow from this midweek system. And here we go. This is the forecast map. We're still several days out, but the threat at midweek next week has a little bit, certainly more potential for an impact in terms of snow in the Mid-Atlantic region of the northeast U.S., again, largely due to this better established high to the north by the time we get to Wednesday morning. Still several days away, but it's something we will closely monitor. And then the GFS has quite a decent snowfall for the northern western suburbs, let's say, of I-95. Let's not get too focused in on those details yet. This is several days away. Just want to really emphasize the pattern here. The pattern here is favorable for some frozen precipitation at midweek with that high pressure to the north, and as we saw up front, the blocking high aloft over Greenland, over the North Pole. That helps to send some cold air and keep some cold air, sustained cold air, down into the northeastern part of the nation. Let's go all the way out to Wednesday evening. That low pushes off the eastern seaboard. Still cold enough now to the north and west. And of course, that high pressure system still sitting there as of Wednesday evening across the southeastern part of Canada. Another thing I want to point out here, climatology is working against accumulating snow in the immediate I-95 corridor region this time of the year. The middle part of December, the sea surface temperatures in the western Atlantic still relatively warm. They don't actually bottom out until maybe late February or March. So any kind of a component of that low-level flow from off the ocean tends to bring in enough milder air to really inhibit the chances for accumulating snow in the immediate I-95 corridor region and all the points down to the east coast. It's not impossible. Certainly something is possible this time of the year, but it's just more difficult. But one of the things that you need and raises the chances for some accumulating snow is that high pressure system to the north, well established over the southeastern part of Canada. Well, the last map I promised comes from the ensemble run of the European model. Up till now we've looked at the GFS model run, NOAA's GFS model. Let's take a look at a European model run. This is the ensemble run for next Wednesday afternoon here. And what we're looking at are different positions of the low pressure system with different ensemble members on this particular type of run. So really you just kind of look at the spread of locations here for that low pressure system as dictated by the ensemble run of the European model from last night. And generally, if you kind of look at the center point, you have low pressure here off the Delmarva Peninsula on average come Wednesday afternoon. That's a pretty decent position for some frozen precipitation possibilities to the north and west of the immediate I-95 corridor region. Certainly a better chance for snow and accumulating snow even at the midweek point for the midweek storm north and west of the big cities. But it is on the table. The other thing I want to point out, look at this. This is that strong high pressure system on the ensemble run across southeastern Canada come Wednesday afternoon. And that is your cold air source. It will send some cold air down on the east side of the Appalachians, a very important requirement for accumulating snow, especially this time of the year for the immediate I-95 corridor region. So very interesting weather pattern setting up for next week for the Mid-Atlantic region, the Northeast U.S. after a mild weekend and an uneventful cold frontal passage on Sunday. Again, we have one storm threat on Monday that'll have marginal cold air to work with in the Mid-Atlantic region, and then perhaps a better established cold air source by the midweek storm system. So more potential in the midweek system, Wednesday night time frame for accumulating snow into the I-95 corridor region, certainly north and west of there, a better chance for some accumulating snow, maybe significant accumulating snow in that midweek system. Again, a key there, the negative AO, negative NAO, and strong high pressure at the surface to the north. That's your cold air source for that midweek system. That's it for now. For PerspectiveWeather.com, I'm meteorologist Paul Dorian.